Tēnā koutou katoa. My name's Thalia here, Rowden. I work for the Human Rights Measurement Initiative, and this is a short tour of the human rights data that we have available, particularly focusing on the rainbow community. If you go to rightstracker.org, you're able to navigate all of the data that we produce. It's all freely available for anybody to use under a Creative Commons license, and it's available in 5 languages. I'm going to go straight to a particular country to show you the range of data we have, and we're going to look today at Fiji. And when we head to the Fiji page, the first thing we see is our at-a-glance view of all of the human rights scores that we have available for our 3 main categories of human rights. So first we have quality of life. We have 5 economic and social rights, the rights to education, food, health, housing, and work. We have 5 safety from the state rights, physical integrity rights, including the rights to freedom from arbitrary arrest and detention, from forced disappearance, death penalty, extrajudicial execution, and torture and ill treatment. And 5 empowerment rights, the rights to assembly and association, the rights to opinion and expression, and the right to participate in government. So for a country like Fiji, we have scores for all of those rights available just on this front page. And if you use these tabs here, you can see much more detailed views of all of those scores. Focusing now on the data that we have that specifically talks about the experiences of the rainbow community. If you go to this People at Risk tab, we ask survey respondents, human rights experts in Fiji and in 40 other countries at the moment. We asked them which groups of people are particularly at risk of experiencing human rights violations for all of those 13 rights that we just went through. And we show that data in these word clouds. So we see, for instance, for the right to education, all of these different groups have been identified as being at particular risk of not enjoying the right to education. And you'll see that one of the groups identified is LGBTQIA plus people. And if we click on it here, we can pre-highlight where that group appears in all of the word clouds for all of the rights. And so as we scroll down, we can see that the rainbow community is being affected by rights violations for almost all of the rights that we measure here. So here they have the right to food, the right to health, and as we go down, we keep seeing the group highlighted. If I show you one more thing here, on the right to health, for instance, at the bottom of the word cloud, there's a show more button. And here you get to see some qualitative information that we have summarized from people's responses in their own words. And for instance, here, under the right to health, LGBTQIA plus people were unable to access healthcare due to social stigma and discrimination. That's some comments that were made in the survey by respondents in Fiji about the experiences of people in Fiji. And you can click show more under each of the word clouds and you'll see more specific information about all kinds of communities, including the rainbow community. For countries in the Pacific region, we have an extra module of data beyond those 13 rights that we've seen so far. And that includes data on violence against vulnerable communities. This is data that was requested specifically by the human rights communities around the Pacific, who asked us to collect more information beyond the 13 categories that we were already collecting data on. So we have produced quite robust measures of violence in the community against children, against people with disabilities, against the MVPFAFF LGBTQIA plus community, and against women and girls. And so again, we have a score here. The score for the rainbow community for Fiji is answering the question to what extent are people free from violence, 4.3 out of 10. So there's a lot of concern here that people in that community are not safe from violence in the community. And then we have some more qualitative data here. People have said that violence against this community is extremely high and increasing. That reports of lesbian and transmasculine people being denied assistance during disaster responses, and more along here. Now we can see how this plays out throughout the Pacific community. So if we go here, we see all the Pacific countries for which we've been able to produce these data. They're lined up here in order of their score. You can also change the order to name or population or GDP per capita. And so you can see that we were looking at Fiji, which is appearing about the middle of the table here. Niue has the highest score, saying that people in Niue are relatively free from community violence. These scores are shown with narrow or wide uncertainty bands. The wider the band, the less certainty we have about the score, or the wider the range of likely scores. That's influenced by two things. One is the level of agreement among the people that we ask. In some countries, respondents gave different responses. And the other influence is the number of respondents. And so certainly some of the very wide bands are in very small countries where we had fewer respondents. And Australia, for instance, the largest country in the sample, has a very narrow band, which indicates a high level of agreement between respondents and also a large number of respondents. That's the range of data that we have easily available. You can see data for all Pacific countries for the violence and for 40 countries, including many beyond the Pacific, for the people at risk data. And we are looking to expand both of those. So anyone who is interested in expanding those data to more countries, please do get in touch with us. You can visit our general website at humanrightsmeasurement.org. And of course, rightstracker.org is where all of these data are located. Thank you so much.